Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kyle Davis. I am one of the application engineers and support specialists here at CAD Technology Center. For today's webinar, we do have the question and answer session I wanted to bring up. There's a panel to ask any questions that you may have, and then if I see it and it's reliable at that point, I will answer it. Otherwise, I will leave time at the end to go over any questions and answers. So with that out of the way, this is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel for future, and you will be notified about this. So let's go ahead and get started here. Today's webinar is going to be going over Revit Keynotes, so understanding Revit Keynotes. It's going to be an intro and setup. And again, if you have any questions, let me know and we'll address them toward the end. So today's agenda, we're going to be talking about how to create and edit a Keynote file using either Notepad or Excel. We're going to go inside Revit and show you how to use the keynotes and go over keynote numbering by keynote or sheet, the types of keynotes that you can use, and keynote legend, and how that works inside a sheet. So as we all know in the industry, the AEC industry, we're always using keynotes to call out particular things such as materials or a particular thing that we're looking for to do, such as existing model, moving a door or moving a VAV box or anything like that. We're keynoting what is going on. But the first thing we're talking about is to create a keynote. We're going to talk about the two different methods to create a keynote and modify one using Notepad or Excel. So to do this first, I'm going to jump into a keynote file that I already have set up here. We have the Notepad version first that I'm going to talk about. So if you open up a keynote file in Notepad, you're going to notice the way it's formatted in a certain manner here of having the numbers on the side over here, and then a description, and then sometimes a number on the other side. This is formatted in this particular way to make it work inside Revit. So when you create a file, so if you open up an existing one that comes with the software, I'm going to mention that if you go to your library location, the out-of-the-box install, there is going to be a keynote file there. I'd recommend starting with that if you're going to potentially use the method I'm going to be showing here for keynotes. I'd recommend opening that and using it. And this is how it looks. You have, by default, it's using like a CSI division list that you got your division 1, 2, 3, and so on. You got all your numbers here. And it's formatted in a way that you have your parent topic, division 1. Then you have a tab here, and then there's the description of that parent. Then there's another number here with a tab and then description, and then tab and then what parent it's related to. So here it has the number and then the parent, which is going to be underneath this one when you're inside Revit. And then same here that we have this one here that's going to be underneath this one here inside Revit. So once I get into Revit, you'll kind of see the tree view here, but this is how it's formatted in a way that you need to make sure you type in the number, then tab, the description, tab, and then the parent that it's underneath. So for example here, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter a couple of times to drop this down, and I'm going to type in here 1, tab, Revit, keynote. Then I could also hit enter and say 2, tab, this is another 1. Then if I say here I want to go 1A, tab, this is a keynote, tab, and then I could say 2 or 1 and put it underneath. So if I wanted to take that and actually put it back up here underneath this one, so it's right underneath, so it makes it a little bit easier to edit afterward. But I can give these any numbers I want, and if you wanted to keep this formatted the way I have it here, I have it as keeping the original out of the box Keynote, and then at the top I put my own, or at the bottom I put my own. And then once inside Revit, we can see how this works here with formatted. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now Notepad is again a little trickier to edit because you have all these tabs that you have to worry about, and some of the times it gets with the tabs, the spacing can be a little different. Like here you got a longer tab and it's not in line, so some people can get very confused at how to use this one. So the Notepad version is used slightly in a different way, but if I was to open this in Excel, and I'm going to click open, browse to that location where I have the file saved. And right here, it's not going to be an Excel file. It is going to be a text file. So I'm going to open this, and you're going to get a message that says, well, how do you want to do this? This is a tab delimited file. So you want to keep this as delimited and tab. And what this is going to do is it's going to break up the columns for each tab. So when I finish this, I'm going to have different tabs here for each of the parents and the descriptions, and then the parents related to, so the child. So column A is going to be the number, column B is the description, and C is the parent that it's going to be underneath. So this one's a little bit easier to edit in the regard of keeping them aligned. So if I come in here and insert a new row and say this is going to be 2A, and then it's going to be underneath 2. So I'm just keeping these in the cells and the rows that they were supposed to be in the columns. And then when I save, I need to make sure that this is going to be saving as a text delimited file or tab delimited file so that it works inside Revit. So then once you have these saved, then we're going to go to the next thing, which is then going to be inside Revit. And we're going to talk about the pathing options, the numbering methods, and then project use going over this. So now I'm going to go back into Revit here. And the major thing that we need to worry about is on the Annotate tab, Keynote. If you click the arrow underneath Keynote, then there's Keynote settings. And then in here, you have 3 options for pathing: absolute, relative, and at library location. So with the 3 options here, you have the absolute, which is going to a exact location. So here I'm pathing to my D drive. But if it was relative location, that could be particular to a project. You could actually put this at a project location and save it there, and then browse to that location for that project. So you can have a folder in there called Revit Keynotes, and then put the text there. And then if this is relative, it's not going to remember the entire drive location that it's at. It's going to remember the project location in relationship to the Revit file. So this is definitely if you're going to use it as a project-based Keynote. Absolute would be if you're using it more as a generic Keynote where everything is the same regardless of project. And then at library location, this is also used if it's going to be a global change across the board, that if you leave this at library location, it's going to take your options for your file locations places. It's going to look here for that Keynote instead of somewhere else like in the project. So again, once you browse to a file, when you click on it and you hit OK, it's going to pop up and say that it's loaded successfully. Also, sometimes when you edit the text file or the Excel file and make a change, you need to go back into Revit and click Reload so that it has the most up-to-date version of the Keynote file, because sometimes Revit doesn't do that right away while you're in the file. But if you close Revit, reopen it, it will reload the Keynote file as well. And there are 2 different numbering methods for Keynotes. There's by Keynote or by sheet. And if you do by Keynote, it's going to take the numbering that we have inside the file. So it's going to take this number as its numbering system. If you do by sheet, it's going to take the number of the first one placed on that sheet. So Keynote 1 will be, excuse me, Keynote 1 will be something different per sheet. So let's actually now go ahead and go using a Keynote just to talk about it here, the different ones of the project. So again, on the Keynote here, if I drop this down, you have three major types of Keynotes. You have Element Keynote, Material Keynote, and User Keynote. With Element Keynote, if I grab a particular element like a door, a wall, window, VAV box, anything, toilet, water closet, anything. I click on that element and I pull this off, and then it's going to pop up right away and I'm going to see the keynotes. Now, it is kind of alphabetical order, so if I scroll all the way down, I must not have reloaded my file here correctly because I'm not seeing my new ones in here. So let me go ahead and close this out, save, and I'm going to make sure I save this so that it replaces. Okay, and then I'm going to go back and reload this, so make sure I have the most up-to-date here. Reload. So now if I come in here and double click on this again, there's my keynotes at the top, so I had to reload it here. So I'm going to show this again, then I'm going to place it. So element keynote, and as soon as I click the second time, it's going to pop up and ask me what is it going to be. So there's my keynote value 1 with the description. If I expand it, there's my 1A with its description. So if I select this and hit OK, it's going to appear in my tag. And you can customize this tag any way you want. There is the edit family here, so you can customize that at any time, how you want this to look. So here I got too big of a gap, so I'd have to go in mine and throw it over. Now, the nice thing about this is the element keynote, whenever you tag an element, it actually creates it as a type parameter. It actually comes in here and puts it as a keynote here. So what this means is now every single one of this type is going to have the same value. So if I have that same exact door over here and I keynote it, it's going to have automatically the same keynote. And then if I change this, if I double click on it, change it to a different keynote and hit OK, it'll change this one and this one because it's based on the element, not just random number. The other method is the material keynote. And this one's very handy if you're going to be tagging like wall sections and things like this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a wall section here. I'm going to go ahead and create one real quick. And I'm going to go to this one, and then I'm going to go into a fine level of detail so I see all the materials. And then I'm going to say material keynote, grab this material, pull it off, place it, and then in here I now have the option to actually call this something. So if I wanted to break it down and actually call it out what it is, I can come through here and select the actual value of that element. So I'm going to find the material here. So it's a standard brick. I might make sure I'm on the right material here. But once I find that material, I could simply select it. There it is. And hit OK. And it's going to put that keynote value in there. Now, no matter where I'm in the project, if I use the material keynote of that same material, I'm going to get the same keynote. So the nice thing about this is now it prevents that accidental, I misplaced it, I mistyped it. Now in other places I forgot to update it with the value that it is. So this one is allowing you to place it and have it be the same everywhere in the project. So again, I can simply go through here and keep creating all these different materials. So I'm going to put this one as gypboard. So I can put that in there and call it out, thermal, and then call gypboard, whatever it is. So you just change it at any time. You can leave it as the question mark and then come back later and change it if you need to update your Keynote file. The last one, I'm going to go back to a floor plan here. The last method is user Keynote. And this one, instead of it being tied to an element, anything like that, I'm actually still tying it to an element. I click on the element and then I place it and then I give it a value. So I'm going to pick the 2 and I'm going to hit OK. But I can pick the exact same element again and keynote it to be something completely different. So with user Keynote, this is more up to you of what you want to pick. So you pick it, give it a keynote, pick it again, give it a different keynote. So you can actually be calling out the same exact element multiple times with different keynote values. What's handy about this is that you have different keynotes in your file. So inside here, if I was to make like the division list here and then make like an existing condition, there is in the out-of-the-box one, there are some elements in here talking about existing construction demolition that you can call out that's an existing door being moved to another location, or have it see schedule, existing door see schedule, or anything like that, that you're calling something out to do something when you have it noted somewhere else in your project. You can simply place this keynote and pick that keynote. Now, the nice thing about the keynotes, again, to finish up on the inside the project here, and we'll talk about some other things, is this absolute relative location. Again, if I set it to be relative, this can actually be per project. So if I say relative and I put it to a location, whenever you save your Revit file, it's going to store where this keynote file is in that file. But if I go to another file, I can have it be passed to a different keynote file. So whenever I open Revit in that project, I know I'm getting the correct keynote based on that project. So you don't have to worry about it updating all your projects accidentally when you change it. Now, if you leave it at the library location for all of your projects, you make a change to that one keynote, it is going to affect your other projects. Which we have that example. I've had that example where they change a keynote and they open it up, and all of a sudden all their keynotes are different. So we definitely don't want to do that. So they did have the option here of setting this per project. So again, we went over the different types of keynotes, the element, material, and user. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is the keynote legend. We want to be able to schedule these keynotes and show them and give it on a schedule here. So back in Revit, if I come down here, it's actually not a schedule. There's not a schedule for keynotes. It is actually a legend. So if I right-click on legends, it is a keynote legend. And it pops up in a keynote legend. I'm going to click OK. And it has automatically the two keynote value and the keynote text in here. Then there's also filter. And you can filter by one of those values. You can also sort by the value and the formatting and the appearance. So just like a regular schedule, but it's a legend. So if I click OK here, it's going to show me all my keynotes that I have in my project, and it's going to show me one here that I haven't placed yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that from the project because I haven't placed it yet. So now what's nice about this then is this is now one keynote legend that I can then put on as many sheets as I need to. So I'm going to drag this onto this one and place it, and I now have a keynote that I can stretch, and it acts just like a Revit schedule, that you have all the pull ability, the stretching like that. But what's the final thing about the filtering, which I mentioned, I have in my slide here, the filtering that can be by sheet. That is an amazing feature here where these are on my sheet right now, and if I go into the view and I do delete it out of there and it's completely gone, it will actually get rid of it from the schedule as well. But the other nice thing is that if I have the keynote in a different view that's not on this sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and keynote this on this sheet, this view here, and when I do that, it is going to show up in my schedule, but it's not on the sheet. So it's not on this particular sheet. But if I go back to the keynote legend, filters, there is a filter by sheet option here. If I'm going to OK that back to my sheet, and it's gone. It only shows me the keynotes that are on this sheet. And if I do the same thing where I go to another sheet and I pull that view on, and then I pull the legend on, it's going to only show me the keynotes that are on that sheet. So it makes it really handy to only show what is necessary for that sheet.